Hey everyone, welcome to another Fundamentals Friday. So for this Fundamentals Friday, I decided to choose a topic that is pretty familiar to me, and that is fantasy portraits. For those of you who know me, I play D&D with a bunch of art friends, which means creating art for this specific campaign is quite enjoyable. And in case there's a bunch of you viewers who like to do this as well, this might be the video for you. So what will we do? We will be discussing how we can actually create unique and interesting fantasy portraits, starting with obviously just a little bit of a recap lesson on what a normal portrait would be like, so we can then move into actually rearranging what we already have and creating something new and imaginative from scratch. So how do we actually go about creating a fantasy portrait, and what would we actually call a fantasy portrait? Well, with fantasy, we really want to just be able to create any sort of species using the information that we already have available to us. So we need to use what we know to get these unique things to still feel grounded as if they could actually exist in real life. So our knowledge of anatomy and construction is vastly important to actually make that work to our advantage. So here, for example, you can see a drawing I did of the character Percy from the Critical Role first campaign. Fan art is just sometimes fun to kind of squeeze in there. And this is the construction that I'm actually thinking about as I am creating this character in particular. So what we can see is obviously you have the thing most people are familiar with, which is the Loomis head, where we have our very simple foundation starting from a sphere. Basically, we're just using this to figure out where things need to go. So the blue zone is the eyes and the nose, which is incredibly drawn this way. And the yellow and the green, that's where we actually expect the mouth to go. So each of these construction lines, and if you want to know more about the Loomis method, that's not something I'm going to be discussing in this video in particular. But it's just a way to figure out where things need to go as we construct our face. But that is not the only thing we need to consider. It's not just the placement on a 2D scale. It's also where they would need to go on that 3D level, which is why a simple foundation for a skull construction is also quite valuable to squeeze in there. As you can see, the Loomis method, what that lacks is maybe the more nuanced shapes that we have for the muzzle of the mouth, because our teeth are essentially rounded, so they recede back into space. We have our cheekbones that poke forward a little bit more, as well as the eyebrows, which means suddenly, rather than just the placement of our eyes, we really need to set them on the inside, essentially, of this entire construction. Same with the nose, etc., and everything we kind of build on top of this. So once we understand these constructions, that's when we can actually start playing around with using this knowledge to create something new and imaginative. Which brings me to the second point, which is going to be related to how do we go about manipulating these structures then? Because obviously, me telling you guys, let's rearrange things, let's play around with things, it's kind of an abstract concept, but there are a few things we can do to specifically go about rearranging these things with a fixed set of rules that might help you guys do this for yourself in the future. So thinking about what we can do to then manipulate, like I said, the first thing that I would usually do is to rearrange the things that we know exists and we know the face must have. Because obviously, no matter the species, obviously we have some exceptions, but usually we have the same features, meaning the nose, the eyes, and the ears, and the mouth, and we can choose ourselves how far they need to be spaced, how we can, once again, rearrange them to get a wide variety of different end results. So having our first normal, quote-unquote, human, our standard, our template, essentially, we can see how the areas we use to sort of divide these proportions, they're almost naturally kind of divided in a big, medium, small sort of way. Not quite exactly, but you can see how the top one is definitely the larger shape, the forehead. Then we have the medium shape being the eyebrows to the cheekbone, as well as the mouth to the chin, and then the small shape is the distance between once again, nose and the mouth. And the thing is, when we start rearranging, we don't just want to increase one of them. We don't just want to shrink one of them. Rearranging means redistributing volume. So what we want to do instead is we want to start looking at how we can keep part of that big, medium, small at least intact. We don't necessarily need to stick to that 100%. But like, for example, in the second example, we can see that the big shape is now from nose to mouth. The small shape is now from forehead to eyebrows and from mouth to chin. And then we have the medium shape being the whole area of the nose and the eye sockets. Now, obviously, these are technically all sort of close to medium, but looking at the total like surface area they encompass, like that's kind of what we want to keep in mind. While in the next one, we turn the forehead into a more noticeable big shape, while again, the mouth and the chin can be, or the nose and the chin can be then the medium shapes, with a very noticeable small shape at the bottom for the nose to mouth. So that's kind of fun to mess around with. There are so many different ways where we can apply these simple principles of just making sure that the hierarchy remains the same, so that we get a clear idea as to what the larger shape is, what the smaller shape is. For the final one, we can also see the same thing happening, where we've accentuated the eyebrows to the nose and the mouth to the chin, but we've shrunken down the nose to the mouth and once again the forehead, and we get so vastly different end results. Now, you might already see how these can very easily be tweaked into a fantastical species once we move into the next step, which is going to be the deformation step. So when we are deforming, we can now adjust the volumes, adjust the shapes, because obviously the shape of the template head I kind of try to retain in the first step. In the second step, I'm really pushing things further, and we can get sort of to the more elf-like, goblin-like, or orc-like features. So with the elf, obviously when we think about elves, we tend to think about a bit more of a proud race, which means we can really accentuate the look of the eyes. And in my opinion, the sort of small pointy nose with the very low mouth sort of gives a specific snobbishness to the face. And you can mess around yourself with what sort of rearrangement delivers essentially what kind of shift in attitude, because we are looking for a specific attitude, and the attitude can be enhanced with these specific shapes in mind. So for the elf, obviously, we have made it much more slim, much more narrow. We've accentuated perhaps the cheekbones a little bit more, because those are quite pronounced in this case. And I think that works quite well to get a unique face. Then we have what could be a goblin, for example, where it's mainly the ears that decide what a goblin look like. Obviously, different kind of pointy ears. With elf, it's just kind of pointy. With a goblin, I would say we try to make it almost more like wings to a certain degree. Pointy chin but chubby cheeks I think works quite well for the goblin proportions. And then for obviously the orc, really widening that jawline, getting a big heavy base, I think works quite well with a small head, which kind of emphasizes the fact that maybe they aren't the most brainy intellectual species. So they have a lot in common with the elves, but we literally inversed the shapes of the elves, so they have a very different aesthetic. The elves are a triangle that's pointing downwards, while the orcs in this case are a triangle that's pointing upwards. Now obviously this is my version. You can do this however you want. You can use whatever shapes you want. There's so many different ways to interpret this, but this is so much fun to mess around with, so I definitely recommend you guys give this a go. Like, it's just a simple idea. You know human anatomy, you know what a human face looks like. You start rearranging things in 3D space, which means you can play around with how far apart they need to go, how close together they need to go, how big, how small, how high, how up. Like, there's so many different parameters to think about, which means infinite amount of variety. So especially when you like creature and character design, try to give that a go.
Hey Arnie, thanks for taking over class today. And guys, as a self-sponsored video here, I just want to highlight some of the amazing growth that's been happening in our group mentorship that Arnie and I run. So check out some of the amazing character development work from Candace, or the in-depth design work that Michael G and Aya has been working on with their vehicle designs. If you're not sure how it works, we hold 4 classes a month, so every Monday, and we'd love to help you reach your art goals heading into the new year. Both Arnie and I cover a wide range of topics, from the fundamentals to illustration to design and everything in between. And if a one-on-one mentorship is more your style, I do have one spot left for March. So I have links below for anything you might need, and I'll let Arnie get back to his lesson.
So let's see what this would look like if we would apply it to some unique and fantastical creatures. An orc is sort of a staple of fantasy, so it's always fun to see how one can approach drawing such a monsterly but yet still humanoid, let's call it, figure. And there's a few ways where we can really separate this figure from what we know to be just kind of human features. So with orcs, it's a good thing to exaggerate. We want to push things a little bit further. We want to make sure that the features that we choose to draw stand out. The last thing we want in a orc or ogre or goblin sketch is that it just kind of looks like a human with fangs or a human with tusks. Like, that's not necessarily ideal. That's not something we want. So playing around with the shapes in particular is a really, really good idea. So if you give them tusks, make sure that the jaw is built for that, so having the jaw protrude a little bit further, that lower lip will really be able to open up, really to reveal all of those hideous fangs. Essentially, that's kind of, I think, a very good addition or solution to that problem of how do we make him look more monster-like, less human-like. And obviously there's a million different solutions to this, but that's kind of what I like to go for. Another thing is, obviously the nose, we expect it to sort of point forwards, but there's multiple ways where we can actually, once again, deform this. So by having the face almost in its entirety feel like it's dented inwards, essentially, really emphasizing that bridge of the nose and tucking that tip of the nose backwards into the face. That combined with the more pronounced brow ridge really helps kind of streamline the entire portrait into feeling unified and, once again, further away from that just a human with tusks idea that we want to avoid. Now, obviously, aside from the orc, we also have the elf as sort of a staple thing, and elves have been portrayed in fantasy quite often, so there's a specific thing we expect to see. Now you can try to reinvent what an elf looks like, which if you're trying to do that, I would encourage doing a lot of research into folklore, taking the descriptions quite literal, as opposed to actually, you know, using elves as reference. Now in my case, I'm going for usually like a little bit more of the traditional stereotypical elf that you might expect to see in a Warhammer or in a you know, Tolkien-esque setting, which means long. It means we want to emphasize perhaps certain features. We want to make sure that the face feels a little bit more, I'd say, sharp and thin, mainly. You could go for elegant, but that's not necessarily what I went for, because the angles I've added really make it still feel kind of burly. But the main thing that I really wanted to play around with was like contrasting the orc nose quite heavily. So rather than having the jaw be the main feature, right now it's mainly the cheekbones, and the nose, instead of just being a stubby button, we really want to connect the forehead and the nose almost just as a flat line. We don't necessarily want that dent for the brow ridge, because I think that is what makes like creatures look less sophisticated. It's what we associate with sort of a Neanderthal or a prehistoric human sort of. That's usually how they portray that. So by getting rid of that brow ridge, we can flatten things out. Things take on a bit more of a sophisticated look, and it turns out that this way we can really create something that's quite, I'd say, fun and not necessarily the most unique elf, but still the features really give it some personality. Now, the haircut also obviously does quite a lot in getting that personality to look just right. Aside from the elf, the other main stereotypical fantasy race is obviously going to be a dwarf. Goblins is something I've mentioned quite a lot as well, but I was going to limit myself to just 3 for the sake of this demonstration, but the same idea applies. So as you can see, the distribution of those features on the face, they change quite a lot. So with the orc, we had the eyes pretty high up against the forehead, with then the nose pretty close against the eyebrows, and then afterwards the mouth pretty low down to really emphasize sort of that hanging jaw. Now with the dwarf, we're sort of doing the opposite. Like, I'm emphasizing the forehead a little bit, I'm squishing the face down to the bottom of the face really, and obviously since we're working with facial hair, the mouth is kind of hidden anyway, so that might be less pronounced. Now, in this case, I didn't want to go for a beard because I wanted the chin to be visible. Also, because that's part of the lesson of the day. Also, just because it's kind of, I think, a bit more of a unique design for the facial features. I thought it was kind of a fun idea to almost have like a double mustache where it's woven and braided in a way where you have one mustache going over top of the other and the other sort of tying behind the head. Would it be practical? No. Is it logical? Absolutely not. Nonsensical, probably. But is it fun? I'd say so. I'd say this is a pretty sort of fun way to wear your mustache. And if I would have a long enough mustache, I might give it that a go. But for now, I really just wanted to get a kind of like a small cube of a face. And I think I succeeded in that. And he looks quite interesting and unique. And that's, in the end, all we're going for with this exercise. We want to warp and manipulate features, shift them around so we can create something that's quite fun and enjoyable to look at. Now, that being said, I think at this point we have covered everything we need to cover. Obviously, when it comes to fantasy portraits, there's quite a lot more we can potentially do, but these lessons tend to be short because I don't want to overflow you guys with information. Now, if you guys want to know more about this subject in particular or have any requests on what you would like to see as well, feel free to just leave a comment in the comment section and I can try to accommodate for the next month. So have a great day and I'll catch you guys later.